Hi everyone. As Louise was saying, my name is David Andrade. I'm head of software engineering for iPlayer and Sounds, and I'm going to be talking to you about how we've been delivering value through this pandemic that we're going through. First of all, big thanks for sticking around this late. I know you've all probably been looking at your screens all day, so appreciate it. And also big thanks to Louise, Andy, and the rest of the team that organized the Tech Meetup. It is a truly team organized event for the BBC. So yeah, big thanks guys. It is massively appreciated what you're doing. Okay, so delivering value. First and foremost, just a bit of an intro about our team and who we are. This is a picture of the iPlayer and Sounds, the department at our tech conference last year. It looks a bit dark because that was from the venue, but it was a great day. We were all together in one place, which rarely happens, and we had great talks. And I guess more than anything, there was just a really good vibe of the people that were there. Well, as you would imagine, we're not planning another one very soon, but hopefully, once things are a bit more back to normal, we will do it again. So to give you a bit of an idea of how our team is structured, we have about 300 people within our department. That is across 4 different disciplines: engineering, product, delivery, and UX and design. We look after backend services and APIs, but as well as the clients for those services, our website, our mobile apps, and also our TV applications, which are quite a big thing for us and for our products, which I'll get to in a second. We're basically across the UK, so we have 3 main locations in which our team is based on. One of them being in London, in White City, one of the BBC offices in London. We also have a big part of our team in Salford near Manchester in Media City, and we have a few teams as well in the BBC Scotland, based in Glasgow. Excuse me. So what do we do? As I was saying, we basically the teams that build BBC iPlayer and BBC Sounds. This is BBC iPlayer on TV, which is the biggest platform for iPlayer, and also the BBC Sounds TV app, which is a fairly new thing for us. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But also obviously both websites for each of the products, as well as the mobile apps that go alongside them, both for Android and iOS in all the different versions, as well as things like Kindle and all the other things that we support. And more recently, due to the BBC efforts in BBC Voice, we also have particularly BBC Sounds offering with Alexa, our Alexa skill for BBC Sounds. So why is it important that we deliver value throughout this pandemic? And I think Sinead mentioned this in her talk, but if you go look at the BBC mission, it is to inform, educate, and entertain. And I think it's probably good to acknowledge that we have been living in quite unprecedented times. So one of the things that the company has set out to do was exactly to make sure that we were there for the audience when at a time that probably during our lifetimes the audience needed us the most. And there's been a big push company-wide to make sure that we put the audience first, like we usually do. I don't think I've ever worked for an organization where the mission or the values of the company are so so much part of the day-to-day conversation. And I think during these times that has been particularly key for us and to steer some of the things that we have been doing. And it's in that line that we have been trying to deliver what we like to think of as true value for the audience, to inform, educate, and entertain. And I'll tell you a bit more about each of these now, to see how we relate our work to the organizational mission. From an informed perspective for the audience, I think that the obvious thing is obviously BBC News. For us in iPlayer and Sounds, this is obviously the video and audio streaming of the news events. This has been particularly interesting for us with the Prime Minister's press conferences, and I guess the general government press conferences when there's big announcements, whether it's to announce lockdown or any other big updates. But it also goes into other things like, podcasts and other types of information, of ways of informing the audience that we have available throughout our products. Coronavirus newscast being one of those examples. From an educate perspective, and I think this was one of the things that our teams were the most proud of over the last few months, when the BBC decided that, with a lot of parents working from home or being at home with their children, that we wanted to help them out and make sure that again we would provide something of value for them. So all the bite-sized team across the BBC and wider teams across the organization pulled together to provide this offering for everyone, and it was available on iPlayer through the different for the different age groups and in different formats, which was obviously really great to see, and hopefully helped a few people with their homeschooling. And then I think everybody that has been either closed at home or with their movement and holidays reduced to an extent or another, entertaining has been a big thing that I think we've all looked up to. One of the key things that we launched early on when the pandemic started was a brand new experience on TV, which we call BBC iPlayer Children. And it's interesting because one of the last conversations I had in the office before we all started working from home, I was in Salford, and I was having a conversation with Duncan Lees, that is one of our team leads that was working on this. And I asked him, well, when do you think this is going to be ready to launch? And he made a joke that, well, it might be sooner rather than later, given the way things are going with the pandemic. Not long after that, we actually ended up doing something that it's not very common for us, which is a 6:30 p.m. Or whatever it was release, because we were waiting for the Prime Minister update to finish of a brand new experience across iPlayer. So massive well done to the team for doing that and pulling it off. And another massive launch that we've done a few weeks later was a brand new TV app for BBC Sounds. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the TV application environment, but it is quite complex, particularly if you're not in the office. So in the office we have in Manchester, we have quite an excellent setup to actually test TVs and make sure that we do our certification process properly. But yeah, we had to launch a new TV app when we were all working from home. To give you an idea of how complex this is, just imagine all the different TV manufacturers and brands that there are, plus all the different combinations on setup boxes, and I guess there's probably hundreds of different configurations that we can get to. So again, a big achievement from the team, and I think a big achievement from the wider team pulling together on helping to make sure that everything was working and testing, sometimes even in your own home devices. But we haven't stopped there, and it hasn't been all just about brand new products and brand new experiences, because obviously we don't pull those together from what for tomorrow. I think a couple of weekends ago, the BBC did a big push to revive Glastonbury, where we had best of Glastonbury across the different products in the BBC, and obviously this was massive for BBC iPlayer and BBC Sounds, so you could actually watch the concert, the artists you wanted, and listen to them as well on BBC Sounds with the different configurations. And at the same time, we had the FA Cup quarterfinals, where both Manchester United and Manchester City were playing. So this drove quite a lot of users to both of our products, and we had to do quite a bit of preparation to make sure that it all worked, which it did, which is lovely. So this is all great stuff, but I guess it's all the fireworks after the party, really. So how did we actually get there? And the reality is, before I get into any details, is we are still in the middle of a pandemic, and some people have been referring to this as, oh, it's the new normal, and everything is just going to be like this forever. And look, I think that it's probably undeniable that some ways of working are going to change, but I don't know how everybody else feels, but this has not felt normal to me at all. I haven't seen most of the people I care about for about 4 months, and I've barely left my home. So yeah, and I think that a lot of people in our team that have kids, or just people that they look after in general, haven't felt that this was normal, or that this is a normal period. So I think acknowledging that has been a big part of our response to how we actually continue to work in this environment. And the first thing we focused on was the team. I think the team comes first all the time, but particularly in times like this, I think that the team well-being and looking after the team has been our top concern. Obviously, there's always someone in the meeting that will ask, okay, but if someone has a different working pattern, will that impact delivery? I think we've done a pretty good job at making sure that first we looked after the team so the team can look after our users instead of focusing too much on, are we doing this thing or are we doing that thing? So, people have different working patterns now and they're trying to juggle, I think, childcare and trying to work at the same time. So we have people that are either in reduced schedules or just different working patterns. And it has been quite good to see how the teams have adapted and they've tried to help each other throughout these different times. So again, big thanks to the team for doing so, and it is massively appreciated. Is any of you a Q worker? So working for this organization never ceases to amaze me, but as head of software engineering, if you were in a pandemic, this is not usually the kind of stuff that you think you'll be asked. The reality is when this started, I was asked if we had any key workers in our team, and in my, I guess, naive definition is like, well, surely not, right? No one here is a delivery driver or a nurse or a doctor. But turns out that we did, because although we run all our services in the cloud, some of the things that we do do require office access, whether it's for broadcast services or for our TV certification processes. So we did have some key workers and some people that had to go in the office to the office through this period. And again, massive thanks to everyone that did that. Obviously, we've put all the measures in place to make sure it was safe to do so. But it is, I guess, just another indicator of how different and I think in a way special it is the work that we're here to do. So if you remember my first few slides, this is where we were, I guess, for the last few years in terms of our team location. And the reality is that right now, this is kind of where we are. And I could either put about 300 dots on our map or just leave it as is. So I went with the easy choice and left it as is. And we're all working from home. And I think whilst it has been strange because of the reasons we've been doing so, the reality is that the fact that we were in 3 locations already has made it really, a lot smoother for us to move to the current setup. We already had most of the tools in place. Obviously, any team that you ask, I'm pretty sure you'll get the answer that you never have all the tools. But I think that more than that, culturally, we were used to work with people that were in a different location. So a lot of teams already had remote first stand-ups. A lot of our leadership meetings are with people that are across locations because the leadership team is spread across locations. So all of that was made a lot easier by our existing setup, and I guess just our culture over the last couple of years that has evolved massively into a remote-friendly setup. But interestingly, I've talked you through some of the, I guess, the big hit releases that we've done, but the reality is that priorities have changed massively, particularly for iPlayer. This wasn't as much of a big change for BBC Sounds, but for BBC iPlayer, we were getting ready for a great summer of live events. So not only Wimbledon, but things like the Euros, the Olympics. We had a big summer of live events planned ahead. And if you looked at all our objectives and our goals, they were all focused on doing that. So it has been quite interesting to actually how much has changed from where we were in January, February, and where we are today, and the things that we focused on and actually worked on and delivered throughout these last few months. And I think a few key things here is that it has obviously had an impact at a team level, and I think teams obviously understood quite quickly that we had to change approach. But I think one of the biggest wins was that from a leadership perspective, the overall setup that we are in now has actually helped us massively focus on our decision making and how we actually had to change to serve the audience and not just continue to work on an experience that probably we wouldn't need immediately, or improving an experience and prioritizing things like the children experience or maybe the Glastonbury experience that we needed to provide instead. So that ability to adapt to the audience needs has been quite key for us and what we've been delivering for the audience over the last few months. But as you'd probably guess, as head of software engineering, one of my key concerns is that things do work more than the necessarily some of the features or fancy features. I think that there's usually an interesting balance between the different disciplines on what the key drivers are. And we have a 3.5 nines availability target for each of our products. I'm not going to get into too much detail on how we got there, and what that means for us. That's probably a talk in its own. But it's basically we have in mind our uptime, downtime for different services, and also any incidents and their impact. And one of the things that we agreed early on as a team, both at a leadership level and I think as an engineering team, was that we wanted to make sure that throughout this period where people are actually at home and more likely to use our services, that more than anything else they worked, and that they worked all the time. So we've put a lot of focus on making sure that that happened. And just before a few weeks before the lockdown, working from home started, we were doing scenario planning. We started doing scenario planning on how this could look like and how the different phases could look like. And obviously, it's really hard to guess what the restrictions are going to be, but we could see from other countries in around the world, and I think some of the countries in Europe, like Italy, on what the different government measures were likely to be. So we came up with a scenario with about 6 scenarios that we used to try and, I guess, form our response and how we would operate. This is a screenshot of scenario 4, which we kind of still are in, where basically everybody's working from home and there's general restricted movement across the UK. Whilst some of these restrictions have now been released, relaxed in England, there's still quite a few that apply in Scotland. So we've been keeping an eye on that and how our team responds. But it's interesting when you do an exercise like this, because you quickly start talking about what it means, who's impacted, and I think that what it means also from an operational point of view, which was the main focus of this document and this preparation. There were other things that we've done from a team well-being perspective, but this was mainly focused around our operational response. And we're still, I think, operating in a heightened awareness period, if you like, although it's been quite a long period, so it feels a little bit more normal now. And some of the things that we've put in place were operational check-ins. We never had these before, not as a formal thing. Like we do loads of changes, and we have quite a few teams. But we started having 3 times a week operational check-ins per product. And the conversation in those check-ins, which are at max half an hour, but usually take about 15 minutes, is you'll have team leads or representatives from each team, as well as people from the leadership team. And its main goal is not, I don't think throughout all these months we ever said to someone, don't release this or don't release that. We wanted to mainly raise awareness. Obviously, we've lost that conversation in the office, the stopping by, the walking and telling someone that in another team that we were releasing something or that a big change was happening. And I think it has become massively valuable to have these conversations, and it may even be something that we keep to a greater or lesser extent going forwards, because it does help us massively coordinate. And even when we're doing things like there's a big editorial event or a big like a football match or something that we're going to have to prepare for, it helps raise awareness for the teams as well. And it is particularly important for us because the other side of our availability story is our throughput. And across all our teams, we care about 2 main metrics: build to lifetime, which is the time that it takes us to get something into code into production, but also our deployment frequency. And we do over 400 changes per month across our teams. So you can imagine that not having visibility of everything else that is going on, or some of the bits that are going on across other teams, can be problematic. So we've definitely raised that awareness, and I think this has been working really well for us, just in terms of coordinating and helping each other. But whilst things must work, they don't always work perfectly. In one of the Prime Minister's announcements, we actually had the Blip on BBC iPlayer. We had quite a few users coming to the product at the same time, and that was a big surge in traffic that caused the blip when we actually lost some of our personalization and recommendations for a period of time. It wasn't a full outage, so I guess it wasn't that bad, but at the same time, some of our key processes like incident command and all of those things kicked in to respond. And obviously, our teams, fully run and operate their services, so they're on call for their services as well, and they responded well. But we still had the blip. So what we decided to do, and I guess that this, proves a little bit that how some of those conversations have been useful in those check-ins, was that Paul Capon, our lead architect, and Richard Owen, one of our engineering managers, actually took the time to analyze what had happened in terms of traffic patterns and what triggered the spike and how it impacted different services and dependencies throughout BBC iPlayer. And then we did a playback session where they basically talked everyone through what had actually happened and how it impacted the different services. So I guess we've just been taking these as big learning opportunities for the team and trying to share as much as possible. And at the same time, we've been trying to put, obviously, again, learning from the things that happened, we've been trying to put a lot more coordination in place when we know that we're like, obviously we can't predict everything, but some of these events and some of these either press conferences or football games, we know they're going to happen. So we're trying to improve our response by coordinating up front. And we've been doing this, has been massively valuable, particularly to interact with other teams for which, service that build services that our products depend on. So it's been really good to, I guess, just create more of that culture within the wider design and engineering division to actually prepare together and make sure that we, things do work when we need them to. Well, as I mentioned, when I was talking about the Sounds TV release, there are some added complications. And, here you can see one of our monitoring walls in Manchester, and also some of our storage where we keep all these different TVs. One of the reasons why we have kept some of us in the office services going is because if you buy a new TV tomorrow, you do expect BBC iPlayer and BBC Sounds or the other BBC apps to be available. And we had to make sure that for new devices that were still coming out in the market, we kept certifying. This is the process by which our team makes sure that the products work properly for that specific device in all the different configurations. Which, whilst a lot of this process is already automated, you still need access to the device. So it's quite a complicated environment. There's some really good talks from David Buckhurst, our engineering manager, one of our engineering managers on TV about this. If you're interested to know more, I'm definitely not a specialist. And I think a funny fact about this coordination, and I guess teams just helping each other, has been even within our mobile teams that you would think, oh yes, everybody can just crack on and do their own thing from home. Is that small things like pools of devices that we have in the office that people can just reuse all the time suddenly are not available. So a lot of our testers had to coordinate a bit of a system to make sure that everybody took some devices home, and then it actually created quite a good collaboration piece where they would have to ask between teams to help test different things as it was needed because they could not have a certain device. So I think in some ways it's been quite interesting, the different collaboration patterns that the current situation has triggered. So I guess the big question is, all this effort, all these releases, all this operational awareness, did it work? Well, would like to think so. The audience seems to think so. We have quite a few popular shows in BBC Sounds at the moment. Peter Crouch, the Peter Crouch podcast being one of those, but there's quite a few more. I think things like releasing in a new application obviously makes it available to users in more places, which is also great. And I guess you can't really fail if you just put a picture of a post of your own boss, but BBC iPlayer has hit a record of 570 million program requests last month, which is 72% up on last May. So would like to think so. I think the audience seems to think so, but we'll continue to evolve both products and hopefully continue to make them even better for the audience. Thank you.